And if you think about the product now in Carder, you can't really sort of decouple the product from the process and the supply chain. It all comes together in a way. And it's also a very big process. You know, a lot of things happen in the mill, and we don't arrive at this by accident. Okay? There's the potential in a process like this, if you don't manage it correctly and you don't make the right decisions, investments and developments, there's the potential to have a very high environmental footprint. Okay? And if you think about the big things that we use in this mill, you know, we use a lot of water, we use a lot of energy, and we use a lot of fibre. And now we use a lot more fibre than we used to. Okay? Energy is an interesting example just on its own. We use a lot of electrical energy in our mechanical pulping process because of the nature of the refining. The other side of that equation, of course, is that we get a lot of pulp out of the wood that we use. So we get 90 to 95% pulp out of wood. So these discussions are quite balanced, actually. If I go through them one by one, actually, and see how we try to tie in the loose ends, so we make sure that we're not having a negative impact. Okay? If I think
actually you are buying much more wood now to run the.
Yeah. I'll mention that actually because it is a good point actually. Yeah, we are. If you think about water first of all, you know, we use a lot of water. In this part of the world, we have a lot of water. Now, it's an area of high abundance, okay? And we take water out of a local river under license, okay? The water is actually quite clean, and we bring it on site and we clean it up to basically drinking water standard. Not quite, but basically. And then we use the water in the mill, and we use the water in the mill in a systematic way. We use the clean water where clean water is needed. At the board machine, in the coating chemical preparation, okay? The water then gets downgraded in a quality way, going back to the beginning of the process when the fibres are coming forward. So we have this counter-current washing process. So the dirtiest water in the mill is the first washing stage of the pulp, okay? This ensures, and this helps, this clean water and this idea of washing and the pulp is the reason we have such a clean, hygienic product, as Robin has said. That's one of the reasons, okay? The water at the end of the process gets discharged. We treat the water and we put it back to the environment under our environmental permit. There is no area, there's no part of our local area which is deficient in water because of our activities. It's just simply isn't measurable because of the volume of water we have on site. We don't consume water in that sense. We use it and we treat it and we put it back and we recycle it as much as we can as well. Okay? So we try to tie that loose end. Okay? If you think about the fibre then, so we have our board making wood, and all of the wood that comes onto this site for board making in Carder comes with full chain of custody, FSC. And that's something we can say which is positive about the wood. Okay? That's been the case for some years. Now you're right, we're buying a lot more fibre as our biomass fuel. And when we say biomass fuel, I think it was stated a little bit in the marquee, it's wood actually, it's clean virgin biomass. It's not pellets and it's not waste. But it's wood at a very low quality level. So it's materials that we discharge from our process, bark, fines, chips that we don't want. It's residues from sawmills, it's forestry products. And of course we are trying to generate this forest energy crop, as I think Ulf mentioned as well. So there's a lot of fibre coming into the mill. It is a big question actually, and the fibre that we burn is also under great scrutiny legally. But we can't burn wood to create energy if it hasn't met the government's sustainability criteria. So we have a system, it's called sustainability criteria actually under the government system. So every tonne of wood that we burn also has to be the subject of a form of chain of custody. Not FSC, but it is another form of chain of custody. That's the situation today, and it's a little bit growing actually. It's been a little bit developed in the last couple of years. So we are under great scrutiny here as well. But our fibre consumption is basically doubled actually. If you then think about energy, and you think about the journey we've made in 45 years, we use electricity and steam in quite a good balance actually. 45 years ago we would burn heavy fuel oil and raise steam, and we buy electricity from the grid, and that electricity comes from gas, coal, everything. 16 or 17 years ago we invested quite heavily in a combined heat and power plant, and that gives us steam and electricity from the same basic equipment. Okay? It was gas fired actually, and then this year, or the last few years, but this year it's been concluded, our parent group has given us the opportunity to complete this sort of journey, if you like. So we've now built a combined heat and power plant So we generate enough steam electricity from the same basic equipment, and we're now filling it with biomass. We commissioned this plant in December, January, February. 28th of February we started the plant in full time, and we basically run that plant since that day to this day. The gas plant is gone. It hasn't physically gone, but it's gone in process terms. It's been decommissioned entirely. Every ton of paperboard we now make, this paperboard I've got in my hand, is made from renewable energy from a sustainable source, according to international protocol. Yeah? And that's a big statement from the mill, actually. Okay, so if you just, one thing which is on people's minds, not on everybody's minds, but it's on a lot of people's minds, is the carbon footprint. And we calculate the carbon footprint according to the rules of SEPI. That's our industry. Okay, there are ways to calculate, but we calculate it in kilograms of CO2 per ton of paperboard, and we take into consideration what we emit from this site, and also the supply chain where we can measure it. Okay, so if you look at this for 2012. This big pink, or if it may be pink, this big pink bar here is the emissions from this site, plus the emissions that we bought from our bought-in chemical pulp. The red line is the emissions that we take from our main raw materials, latex, starch, pigment, bleaching chemicals, and these little ones are actually transport related. Okay, quite small compared to what we do. Okay, we've made many hypothetical calculations. This is now real data from May, June, and July this year. And what you can see is we basically eliminated from this site all of our fossil carbon emissions. In the carbon footprint, of course, there's still something there because we buy raw materials. This is the residual supply chain carbon footprint that we say is in carbon. Now, if you read the guidelines, the SEPI guidelines, it also allows you to make certain offsets. So that's the carbon footprint. We also sell our surplus electricity to the grid, and that's renewable electricity. And there's a way of calculating the carbon factor in the grid. If you back calculate, you get basically this line here. And if you net them off, we're basically operating on a plus or minus. This is a little positive, but we're operating on this potential that's plus or minus zero, actually. So all direct emissions zero, carbon footprint like this, actually. And this is now in our gift, if you like. This is our job, because this is a startup phase still. This is now in our job to continue work with this, actually. We like to do this, actually, because we like to put things into perspective. The reduction from here to here, you're living in an area called Cumbria, that's our county. The biggest city in Cumbria is actually quite small, it's 100,000 people. The domestic emissions from Carlisle, 100,000 people, is about this. That's what it's worth, if you like. We also say it's worth about 65,000 cars. You can calculate that, actually. An average car doing 20,000 kilometres a year is emitting this type of level. So that's putting something into perspective, actually. And I think it's a very positive thing for this product, actually. It's a very good statement to fit in line with the qualities, actually, as well, that we are primarily pleased with, actually.